Sorry, my mouth is full. We've got some Hawkins cheesies here.
Yes.
We're not going to talk food. Well, we probably will talk a little bit about food.
Every episode we're going to talk about food.
But we're going to talk about parenting.
Yes. Put some of our parenting knowledge to the test. Talk about the generational gap. We'll see.
What is parenting knowledge?
Even when we got nothing to talk about, there's nowhere I'd rather be. 'Cause there's something about you and me just sitting around talking sheets.
Talking Scheetz.
There's nothing like the sound of Hawkins cheesies in a microphone to really draw the audience in. That is a distinct sound.
The best part about this, and again, you might be able to see a little bit of if you're watching it on YouTube, there is a French bulldog that's at my toes because she thinks that, when I eat, usually things drop and she can take advantage of it.
Yeah, she has given us the puppy dog eyes for those cheesies. But at least she's not biting.
All right. So again, the parent in me says, don't spoil her and give her a cheesy, but I probably will because I kind of gave in as a parent, and I'm going to give in as a dog parent too.
I mean, we had our Pet Expo episode, and we had an expert come in and basically say that you should reward only good behavior. Yeah. And maybe that is true for parenting children as well. I don't know.
Okay, I want to do a real quick shout out to Dan Davidson in the song you just heard. My 7-month-old granddaughter loves that song.
Yes.
I have witnessed it. You've been editing the podcast and doing things with it, and she'll be a little bit unhappy. She'll be on the floor kind of doing her whatever crawl and fussing around. You start that song, she gets the biggest smile on her face until it ends.
Yeah, and she starts bopping a little bit. She started to kind of learn what music is and dancing.
Yeah.
Her favorite 2 songs,
yeah.
Pink Pony Club by Chappell Roan. She loves that song.
Yeah.
Her second favorite song, the Talking Scheetz theme song. She is a big fan.
Little different subjects.
I mean, yeah. But she contains multitudes already. She knows good music when she hears it.
Awesome. All right. This was your idea. What are we doing?
Yeah. I mean, we were talking about what we wanted to cover this week. And I think that something that
because we are finding out that you doing this every week, you got to come up with something new.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we talk a lot.
Yeah.
And we talk to each other a lot.
Right.
But it actually, we need to kind of have topics. We can't just ramble on about nothing every episode. Some episodes we do that. But
we'd love to talk about Canada every week. But,
I mean,
and we probably could. But
the conversation has really kept going on that. We've gotten so many comments and so many things. But maybe we'll have another episode about that sometime. But I thought what would be really interesting is that we've talked a little bit about me having my first child 7 months ago, and you adjusting to becoming a grandparent, and me adjusting to becoming a parent. And some of the, I guess, generational gaps that we've noticed, I thought were very interesting in how parenting was in the 90s when you raised Carter and I, and now. And I thought it would be really cool to kind of dive into that a little deeper in an episode and talk about what's the same, what's different, parenting tips. We got advice from our audience, which is awesome. And yeah, that's just the entire episode about parenting.
And to set the scene, I think I'm a Gen Z, I think. Gen Z?
No,
not a Gen Z. No, and I'm not. What am I? I'm a Gen X. I'm not a boomer.
Okay.
Oh, so we're already doing our first fact check with producer R.
Yeah, producer Renato he's Googling. We've hooked him up to
54 years old. I should know what I am, but I'm not a boomer. I'm just younger than a boomer.
Sometimes
I'm a Gen X.
When you're on TikTok, you are a bit of a Gen Z, but you're a Gen X.
Okay, so just to set the scene, and I think we'll talk about parenting in my generation, parenting in your generation, and even parenting in my parents' generation as well. Because
from what you can remember,
from what I can remember, there was some huge changes. Okay,
yes.
So
I'm a millennial, the very tail end of millennials.
Okay, are millennials the lazy ones?
Well, it depends who you ask.
Okay,
I guess.
Just thought I'd check. All right, yeah. Okay, let's go.
Okay, so one of the first topics that I mean, it makes sense to cover first is pregnancy.
When it all begins.
Yes, I mean, babies are still made the same way as they were, as far as I know.
Yeah.
But more so just what is different about the process of pregnancy and going through it and things like that. Although I will say there is a lot of new technology around getting pregnant and IVF and all of those different things. There's a lot more information about infertility, and that's something that a lot of people struggle with, and it's so hard, but the research is there, and I feel like there has been big strides made in the last couple decades on helping people get pregnant.
Sure,
people that need help.
Yeah.
But we're talking like once you're pregnant, what is different about going through pregnancy?
Okay. And you did say that, as far as you know, nothing has changed as far as the creation of babies. It has, because I'm convinced that Leona came because of a stork. Okay.
Yes, she dropped a. I mean, you saw her in my stomach.
It's funny because, and I came because of a stork.
Yes.
But I know exactly how you came, and it wasn't a stork. Does that make any sense?
I think we'll go with that. I mean, we're trying to.
What I'm saying is, I'm fine with the understanding of it when it came to me, but I don't want to know how I was created, and I don't want to know how my granddaughter was created. That's what I'm saying.
I mean, okay, we'll go with that. The stork dropped the embryo into me, and then I had a baby.
Okay.
But pregnancy. What do you remember about when Mom was pregnant with me, because I was the first, and then Carter?
I remember finding out because of the stick, right?
Mm-hmm.
Peeing on the stick. So that was it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we went in at some point. We told the world way too soon. We were way too excited. You should, technically, it's probably a good thing to just wait a little bit.
Yeah, the first trimester, there's so much that can go wrong in that time.
Yeah,
right?
I think, as I remember it, we told everybody right away. Like, I think you know what, I'm pretty sure once you were conceived, I ran out the door and said, hey, I'm having a baby. I was pretty excited.
Yes, of
right?
course,
but,
course.
Yeah, so is that different now? Not really. Like,
we found out on being on a stick the same way.
Yeah.
But I think that the tests have gotten better.
Right.
You can find out quite early, which is good and bad. It's good to know, to prepare, but it's also like, again, a lot can go wrong at the very beginning, and people are finding out days after, and it kind of creates a lot of anxiety and stuff around that. We waited a little bit to tell people.
Right.
Not super long. Especially you guys. We waited a while to tell like the world and stuff like that, but
we found out Christmas Eve.
Yes, we told the family over Christmas.
Right.
And I think that part was hard, especially the month or so that we knew. We found out on your birthday.
Right.
Renato and I found out, and then we waited about 20 days, which doesn't feel that long, but it felt so long. I was traveling a lot, so that was easy because I'm not good at lying to you and Mom, as you know.
Yeah.
And so I didn't see you much in those 20 days, which made it easier. But it was, I feel like people are waiting a little bit longer to tell people because it's kind of scary.
Okay, yeah, for sure. And I was talking with your mom about it, and she said, yeah, we only had one ultrasound with our babies. There's a lot more now, right? You had how many?
I only had 2 scans, but I was very lucky to have a very healthy pregnancy. So do we have 2 scans? This is a good fact check.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 scans. We had the 20-week big one with all the anatomy, and sweet Leona in utero there, she didn't want to show us a bunch of things, so we had to keep going back. So we actually we had a couple of, the anatomy scan took a few days, and then we had 1 scan at 34 weeks because they had a hunch that she might be big.
Right.
And then we did the scan, and they said, oh no, your baby's 60th percentile. Yeah. She's gonna be just average 7 pounds when she's born.
She turned out to be in the 600 percentile.
Yeah, she was huge.
Right.
So they were they might not always still be that accurate.
Jack and Matt would laugh because I used to say all the time, oh my gosh, these people sharing these ultrasound pictures on Facebook. It looks like an alien. It looks like an alien. I don't get it. Oh my gosh, don't show me that. Yeah. Then when you sent I'll remember I was on the air and you sent the picture because you just got it done, and I'm just like, I wanted to show the world. That's my grandchild. I didn't know it was a granddaughter, but that's my grandchild, that little alien, and I love her. And it's funny how all of a sudden it matters once it's yours.
I think that's true of almost everything that we're going to talk about. Is that when you hear other people talk about it before you have kids or grandkids, you're like, ugh.
Yeah.
And then once it's yours, you're like, this is so important.
Okay, sorry.
No,
Go ahead.
No, that's okay.
Yeah.
I think another thing that at the very beginning maybe we should have talked about is the age difference. How old were you and Mom when I was born?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're 30, I'm 54, so do the math. I was 23.
23.
23. Your mom was 22.
22,
yeah.
Which was very common and is still common. There's still people having kids.
There are,
young,
but not as common.
Not as common. Like
no.
I just turned 30 this past September, and I feel like a young mom. I feel like a teen mom, but really I'm not compared to when people were having kids a long time ago. There's still, of course, people that start families much sooner, but
more often than not, it's like 30.
Yeah, I think I think the average. Maybe we should have a fact check on this, but I think the average age these days to have a kid is 29 or something like that. So it's definitely gone up in the last generation, and up even further probably back. People were having kids even younger.
Why do you think that is? Like in your case, I mean, you married an older man.
I married an old man. I think that people are maybe enjoying their 20s in a different way than they did. I mean, for me, it was like by the time you go to school and establish your career, it just wouldn't. I think it's harder to have a kid and establish your career at the same time. I think you kind of have to be in a place where you're comfortable before you have kids, where prior to that it was like, oh, we'll just have kids and then figure it out.
Okay.
And I don't know what's better or worse, but I do think people are waiting a bit longer because it takes a bit longer, and life is expensive, and getting kind of in a place where you feel like we're going to talk about all the gear and stuff you need. It takes a while.
That could be the biggest part.
Yeah,
right?
Financial.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, for sure. It takes some time to get to that point if you ever do. Okay. Yeah. Gender reveals.
Yeah, that's become a huge thing. I think that is a millennial exclusive thing, is just the big parties and big reveal on when you find out if your baby is a boy or a girl.
Yeah.
We didn't have one of those. We didn't end up finding out what Leona was until she was out. But I think that's a little bit more uncommon than it used to be too. I don't know.
Do you think does it happen because of social media? Is that the big reason why gender reveals are a thing? Or is it because people want to have another party?
Yeah, they might just want to celebrate.
Right.
But I do think the show of it, the like popping balloons or cutting cakes or shooting guns or shooting hockey sticks, there's like all of these elaborate things to reveal the gender, is definitely a social media thing. I think the gender reveal party is probably just because people want to celebrate a bit more, but I think that the like elaborate ways in which people do it, and there's been some cases where people have started forest fires from shooting off fireworks for their gender reveal and things like that. So I will say it has maybe gotten a bit out of hand, but I like the concept of celebrating every little milestone in a pregnancy. We chose to not find out what she was, and I think that there's definitely merit to both. Either you're surprised at the gender reveal, or you're surprised during birth, when there's a lot of other things going on.
When do you want the surprise to happen?
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'm sure we could have. I know we could have. I think I remember during the ultrasound, they said, hey, if you want to know, we can let you know. And we same thing. We just said, nah, just whatever. We'll find out when the baby arrives. Okay. That's a good one.
Yeah. I think you guys, when I was pregnant and I was conscious about like different things that I was eating and drinking, you were like, we didn't do that when Mom was pregnant with you. She ate everything.
Everything.
Yes.
Yeah.
The whole cured meats, raw fish, limiting caffeine. There's all of these advice that you get about what you can eat and what you can't eat and what you can drink and what you can do. And when I was pregnant, you were like, oh, we didn't follow any of those rules. Those rules didn't exist when you were born.
There was no internet.
Yeah, right? I guess so. That makes a big difference.
You got all of your advice. The advice you got was from your mother or mother-in-law or grandma.
Yeah.
So that's what you got.
So changes didn't happen.
And those ones weren't saying don't eat salami.
No.
They were not. They were fine with that. So, but that's very, very true. I would watch, and I think there's people that take it to the next level that even you did. But it was just like, because we went on a holiday shortly after we found out you were expecting, and I'm just like, okay, Bailey, where are we going to eat? Like, where can we eat?
I don't think it was like
you
that.
can only eat air? What's the deal?
I was also very nauseous. I think
fair.
that was bigger, is that I felt gross. It wasn't, I didn't limit that many things. It was just more so I felt gross, and there was only certain cravings that I had, especially at the very beginning.
Right. Okay. Well, the baby comes. There it is. Oh, the one thing I was going to say is, compared to when I was there, obviously I was there when both of you were born, and it was an incredible experience. It was the highlight of my life. But my dad wasn't when I was born, because that wasn't a thing typically.
Men weren't in the delivery room with their wives or
sometimes partners. They were in the waiting room. Sometimes they were already at the bar getting ready to celebrate with their buddies.
Yeah.
That's the way it used to be. And then the moms would stay in the hospital for 7 days. And I'm not sure if they needed to be in the hospital for 7 days or the dads paid for them to be in the hospital for 7 days.
And that to me is crazy.
Yeah.
We have given our producer Renato a fair share of crap in the last few episodes, but a rough time. But I will say, in the delivery room, if he had not been there, he was dialed in.
Yeah.
We were a bit nervous about him being in there at first, all of us, because he's a bit squeamish at times.
Most people, the Vegas odds were he was going to pass out.
Yes, they gave you the betting odds were there.
Yeah.
But he did an amazing job.
Right.
And I could not have done it without him. Obviously, I was doing the brunt of the work.
Yeah.
But the emotional support for someone like me when I'm screaming and in pain, it was, I can't imagine if that man was at the bar with his friends when I was pushing his giant child out. That is crazy. Yeah. It's crazy, but it was very much a thing.
Yeah. The story of my life was when I was born. Of course, it was the 7 days my mom was in the hospital. My dad had a few friends over, And so my grandmother, my mom's mom, had to come over and like seriously clean the house before she got home because it was just, you know.
How exciting to meet your first child for the first time and you're half cut. You make you very emotional.
More than half cut, I would say. And it was the time.
Yeah,
okay.
Totally different. I'm glad that there is definitely like a culture of men passing out. I think that's very common. The nurses, even when we were there, I was like, you got to watch this guy. And they're like, oh God, not another one of those. But it's better to have them there.
In the old days, they passed out for a different reason.
Yes.
It was one of those things.
That's true.
Okay, sleep. When you kids were born, you know, I used to talk to Jack and Matt about it. Matt more than Jack, because, and again, everybody lives their own life with their children, but sometimes I'd invite Matt and his family over and he'd say, okay, as long as we can come by 6:30 because we got to leave by 6:45 because the kids got to go to bed by 7:15. And I'm like, oh, Matt, no, just come around the fire and they'll sleep in your arms or put them on the couch or let them run around. And I'm not picking on Matt. But that is a huge portion of society lives that way now.
I would say that parents have become a lot more regimented with the sleep schedules of their kids.
Right.
And sleep training is a thing now that maybe wasn't as common when you were raising kids.
Yeah.
And
I'm sure there were still people putting their kids to bed before 1:00 in the morning like we were. But
yes,
but it wasn't sleep training. I don't think was a thing. What is sleep training?
Yeah, well, I actually did some research, maybe for the first time ever for this show.
Oh,
so that's
okay.
huge.
Highlight. All right.
Luther Emmett Holt published The Care and Feeding of Children in 1894.
Okay.
Which is what most modern sleep training is based on, and that's basically just teaching your kids using a certain method to teach your baby to sleep on a certain schedule. So it's very schedule based a lot of the time. You focus on wake windows, which is the baby should be awake at this time and asleep at this time. And I think a lot of parents find a lot of success with the predictability of it.
Right.
Because babies, everything about having a baby and raising a baby is unpredictable. You don't know how they're going to be that day, what they're going to, like, there's just so many factors. And so I think being able to predict when your baby is going to be awake and asleep, and you can schedule your day around that, I think that there's a lot of merit to that. However, our baby is she's not a regimented baby.
No.
She is not the kind of baby that would take well. We haven't tried a lot of
She's
things.
the opposite of sleep trained.
Yeah, she just kind of, she does.
And it's great. It's great 80% of the time, but there's challenges 20% of the time.
She has a FOMO. She has so much FOMO.
Yeah,
she won't sleep if there's any kind of action going on
because she's missing something.
She wants to be involved.
That runs in the family, right?
We'll put her in her crib. She'll be sleepy. We'll put her in her crib. If there's people over, she just stares at the door.
Yeah.
Like our dog, to get out of her room to come play. She's very social. She wants to be around people. She does not sleep around people.
Yeah.
So I think that it depends on your baby, I think.
And I would say that when, and this is the same in Leona's case, but when you guys were kids, it was easier for us to do because if you guys stayed up with us and partied, we'd go to a party and we'd stay till 2, 3 in the morning and you kids would stay with us and you would stay up and have fun with us. Then we'd all go to bed and sleep till noon. There's a lot of kids that don't do that.
No.
You put them to bed at 2 in the morning, they wake up at 6 and you got to deal with a disaster all day long. So we got very lucky. So it's easy for me to say, but in my view, it was the best way to just take advantage of time because we never had to sacrifice leaving a party early or not going to a party or anything like that. But again, we were lucky because you guys would sleep in too. Like you didn't wake up. We didn't have 6 o'clock babies, right?
I think it's so baby dependent. And I think that there is something that's kind of crappy about being like, oh, sleep training will work for every baby. You must sleep train your baby because some are just like, I don't think you could have sleep trained us either. Like some babies we have a night owl. Leona she likes to be up late and she likes to sleep in. And I think that that's because when I was pregnant with her, I was covering the Oilers in my job as the social media manager. And I would be at every single game, traveling a lot to go to games. And those are some late nights.
Yeah.
And I remember coming home from games, especially in the playoffs, laying in bed, and that's when she would start kicking in my stomach. Like, she would be fired up after an Oilers win. And I think that now she's just kind of like on that schedule. And it works for us because we are also like late night people and I love to sleep in. So it works for us now. But I do think that there is definitely merit to sleep training and having a schedule. It depends who you are.
When school starts. And it does. Yeah, it's to each their own. Some people will leave a party, if they leave a party early and they get that child to bed and they have a good night's sleep because they're going to be up at 6 a.m, fine.
Sleep is very important.
But if you're somebody that, it works the other way. So, but it has changed a lot. There was no sleep training, I don't believe. Maybe there was 1 or 2 people doing it, but it wasn't the majority, right?
I do think when Carter and I started school, it was a bit of a rude awakening for everyone.
Right.
I still hate mornings. Yeah. So it's interesting.
So do I.
Yeah.
Which is ironic because I was a morning man for many years.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
The actual sleep setups have changed too. It depends. There's many different ways you can kind of set it up, but Leona slept in a bedside bassinet beside us. No blankets. That's not a thing anymore. She's just got her little sleep sack on, a swaddle when she was little,
sacks,
and a sleep sack. Yeah, the first time you saw her in that, you're like, what the heck is that?
That looks so confining. But
she's cozy in it.
She loves it, right? There's no legs.
No, the leg. Yeah, if you haven't
like
seen
a mermaid
sleep sack,
outfit.
it zips up. Her arms are free, so she can grab and move and do everything. But it kind of covers her legs like a little dress, and you zip it up, and she's warm. But there's no blankets on top of her because that's a safety issue. Okay. Where you see pictures of me in my crib, or I'm sure you when your parents had you, blankets everywhere.
Well. Yeah, and I was sucking on the lead-based paint, so that was the way it was.
And here you are. I think that the new safety protocols are better, for sure, but it's different.
100%. Yeah. We could talk about that, the differences, right?
Yeah.
What were they called? But they were the little things with wheels. You put the kid in it.
Yes.
Now we've got the exercisers.
Where she bounces, but these were like walkers.
But yeah, they had wheels.
Yeah, and you would
kids
walk.
Kids would go down the stairs, right?
They're like outlawed everywhere now.
Yeah.
There's a reason that safety protocols are put in place, certainly.
Exactly. Jolly jumpers, you'd put them in the door frame, and the kid would just jump, and I don't think they're a thing anymore.
Not as much. No, I think they were causing hip issues. Maybe that's why my hips click every time I take a step.
And we probably can't drink out of the garden hose anymore either. Okay, let's move on. Yeah. You have to flip up so we can do that.
Yes.
Food. The differences with food.
Maybe you should just set the scene by talking about your approach to feeding me as a baby.
Yeah. My friend Marty he says he has still has it's like a core memory for him. When I would feed Bailey, and I'd spend a lot of time with you, and your mom was working, and I was working later, and but I would feed you, and I would feed you so quickly. He says, I remember watching sports, whether you're watching sports highlights or the Oilers or whatever, and you're just pounding the pablum into this poor little thing, and she just boop, 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 boop. And
I think that you created like a Pavlovian?
I've heard the term.
Okay, a Pavlovian response. I thought you were going to be like, what are you talking about? Yeah. A Pavlovian response, because now, as I work the Oilers games in the press box, I constantly need snacks. I feel like you created this connection where I'm like, oh, I hear hockey, I must eat, and I must eat quickly. But now I'm up there doing my job, and I constantly need snacks all the time, very quickly, shoveling in the snacks. Okay. I think that's why.
All right.
But pablum, as a concept, is less of a thing than it was too, and that was like the starter food for every baby. It was rice cereal, pablum, where now it's kind of the general consensus that you should introduce your baby to a bunch of foods at the beginning.
Okay.
And food only at 6 months, not before that.
Okay.
And there's something called baby-led weaning.
Thank you. I hope you were going there. Ridiculous. Like, just let these little kids be. They're already going to be pigs when they're eating, but just put all this stuff on their food tray and let them kind of shove 10% of it into their mouths.
Yeah.
It does not make sense to me at all. What's the theory? Why on earth do people think this is a good thing?
Mainly, it isn't actually for eating the food.
Okay.
Like it is for helping your baby explore foods and learn how to bite and chew and learn how to feed themselves, so that you're not constantly shoveling food into their mouths, and they're learning how to eat. I will say
they're not going to figure this out without putting a bunch of putting a slop pail.
We may have gone backwards, because now we have to train our babies how to sleep and then teach them how to eat, which I think are the two most human things.
Yeah. Like I remember seeing Leona's very first bite of food. She got it. She ate, the spoon came. She opened her mouth. She understood. Like it was like
I don't know, because our journey so far has only been about a month of it, and I do a mixture of things. She also gets like purees and a little bit of cereals, but when you do give her like the steamed broccoli or the steamed carrot, watching how much better she's gotten at grabbing it and feeding herself.
Well, yeah, she's getting older. She's going to get better at things.
It's very messy. And the cleanup is an absolute disaster.
I think that's the thing. And I'm not exactly a clean freak, but when I see that, I'm just like, why is this happening?
I wonder if baby-led weaning is a conspiracy created by dogs.
Yeah.
Because you know who wins
Dogs.
the most when Leona is shoving half the food in her mouth and half on the floor?
Yes.
Honey.
Yes. Okay, I completely agree with that.
But I do think that it's valuable, and she's got to try so many different foods that she wouldn't have been able to try yet.
I want to say something about Pablum. My grandma Broadbent, I remember telling me a story just a few years ago before she passed away. She said, your second cousin Miles Tomaszewski was such a big baby and they could not keep him full. So they had to start putting steak in his Pablum. So I don't know. That's a story from Warburg.
Baby-led weaning. They recommend introducing steak early.
Okay.
Because babies' iron stores deplete at 6 months old, and iron is very important for babies.
Right.
So they say, and breast milk doesn't have a lot of iron, so they say give your baby a hunk of steak.
Okay.
So maybe Warburg was onto something.
All right. That's why Miles grew up to be such a strapping young man.
His iron levels must be on top of
He's not very young anymore. All right. Yes. Car seats. When I left the hospital as a little baby from the Royal Alec with my parents, I know I've left in my mom's arms.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the way it was, right? And then when we took you guys home, I remember the nurses coming down to the parking lot or where I was picking up. We would take and making sure that the car seat was all good. Mm-hmm. Did that happen for you? Did they do any inspection?
Yeah, they do check the car seat.
Yeah,
and they make sure that it's tight and safe and good, and the baby's in there. It's kind of the only real check they do before sending you home with the baby. They're like, oh, you better have a car seat.
Yeah.
Who knows if you have a home?
You could be an
or
absolutely
you have anything.
Terrible parent, but as long as you got a car seat and they're safe to get home,
you're good to go.
Okay.
But yeah, car seats are very expensive these days. Though.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, just crazy. It is.
And you got to go through 3 or something in the first year.
Well, Leona, yeah.
She does, yeah.
Yeah, we're in our infant carrier, which is the first step. The rear-facing little click in that you can click out and click in.
Which is handy.
Very handy, unless you have a 25-pound baby at 7 months.
Yeah.
She's already on the brink of growing out of her very expensive infant car seat. Most babies can last up to 10 months to 14 months, and they're in there for a while.
Yeah.
But we have a big baby, which means it just feels a little bit like that was a lot of money for a short time.
Yeah.
I will also say that we purchased a lot of things secondhand on Facebook Marketplace and from friends and things like that for our baby. A car seat's not one that you want to purchase secondhand.
You're not allowed to.
Yeah,
I'm not allowed to.
It's not recommended.
It's like a hockey helmet.
Yeah, you don't know what it's been through.
Right.
So we had to just pay the money for that one, and then she's going to go into the convertible car seat, and it's a whole thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that's the difference.
But we were in car seats, so that's good.
Yeah, you were 100%. Car seat's a perfect opportunity for us to talk about Londonderry Dodge.
Yes.
I had a chance to head out with your mom in the beautiful 1500 Classic Dodge Ram. It's a little dirty right now. I got to get it to the car wash. We all got to.
It's that time of year,
it's
though.
It's a struggling time.
Yeah.
But we went out east of Edmonton, quite a distance, to be honest, with Alberta Dreams, the new organization that I'm working with, and we did a dream reveal for Hunter, a young man. He's 12 years old. I call him a man. He's a strapping young man. 3 years old. He was diagnosed with a disease, a very rare disease, which created tumors, uncontrollable tumors that grew in his body. They were benign, but they found a way to make them stop growing, and he has to go to the stollery every 3 weeks for treatments to make sure that they don't grow. But we unveiled an opportunity for him to get his own personal designed outdoor rink that's going to be built for him. And we took the Londonderry Dodge out there. Man, that truck drives great. Just was fantastic. Just cruising up and down the road. So thank you to Mitch and Jamie and everybody at Londonderry Dodge. You're still loving your Jeep Compass Trailhawk?
Oh, absolutely. And when we talk about these car seats, they're not tiny either. And the bases that you strap them into are huge.
Right.
So it's nice to know that we have enough room, because in our previous vehicle, in our tiny little car,
yeah.
Leona was basically up to where I was, and I couldn't move my seat in the passenger seat up. So it was a tight squeeze, where now we have room, and that's nice. Another nice Londonderry Dodge moment was when we took your truck to a family birthday party.
Right.
And we were 5 minutes away from the birthday party. Leona was in the back in her car seat, of course, and she fell asleep 5 minutes before we got to the party.
That's true.
Which, again, I'm not doing any sleep training, but I know that waking up a baby after 5 minutes is not a great...
And taking her into a Ukrainian birthday party?
With 100 people.
Not a great idea.
No. So Grandpa
Yeah.
You volunteered.
Took one for the team.
Yeah, you volunteered as tribute, and you stayed in the truck with Leona while she finished up her short nap, because she doesn't take amazing naps.
No.
And you hung out in the truck.
I just tilted
it was spacious.
the electric seat back and just Grandpa was, and then we just kind of slept together.
Yeah,
so.
it's a good place for grandpa and granddaughter naps.
Absolutely. Again, Talking Scheetz. Thank you. Tell everybody at Londonderry that we sent you. Okay, now screen time was not an issue when you guys were growing up.
Well, there was TV.
Yeah, that's true.
And I watched a fair amount of TV.
You were a big fan of Barney.
Yeah.
You're a huge fan of Barney.
Yeah, I feel like I watched a lot of hockey games.
Yeah.
And a lot of cartoons.
Yeah.
But it's different now. There's iPads, everybody has phones on them. And I'm still struggling, I guess, with figuring out how to navigate that with her, because screens are going to be a part of her life.
Yep.
No matter what.
Yep.
But you also don't want to have a kid that is addicted to a screen before their first birthday, or like can't be away from it. You know,
it's alarming already, the pull of that the phone. Like if you put 10 things on a shelf, the phone would be the one she'd go for.
Yeah, and we don't give her our phone that much. We don't show her that much. What she does mostly on the phone is FaceTime with both sets of her grandparents.
Yeah.
And she loves to FaceTime.
She loves it. Yeah.
She absolutely can tell there's other people on the other side. She knows it's her grandparents.
Yeah.
And she gets so excited. So now she's associated the screen with her grandparents and being so excited and having a great time.
Right.
So she's already definitely knows. And it's such an interesting conversation about how to make sure that they're technically literate, because you want kids that know how to, they're going to be using these things their whole lives.
They're going to have to.
Such
you
a
can't
part of
hide
their
it
lives,
from them, right?
But also not addicted to phones and still kind of get to have that childhood experience offline and in the world. I feel very lucky that smartphones weren't invented until I was basically graduated high school, because then I got to grow up without that.
Yeah.
You know, so
a blessing.
Yeah, it was. We had our one computer that we got later than most people, and it was sitting in our dining room, and we would play little games on it, but it wasn't the same. So I guess that's just, I don't really have an answer to it, but it's a question, and definitely something to think about, is how to navigate our world and screens and phones and iPads. I will say we're going on a trip. We'll talk about that at some point. We're going on a trip a little bit later. Leona's never seen an iPad, but if that baby starts to lose her mind on a plane, it might be iPad baby for a little bit.
Break glass in case of an emergency.
Yes.
And the last thing I want is my granddaughter to ever be addicted to her phone like her grandpa is.
That's exactly the thing. It's like, I don't know, you didn't grow up with an iPhone, but you're the worst of us. So I don't know how to stop it.
Yeah, maybe it'll be the opposite. Maybe she'll be just fine.
I do wonder if the next generation is going to be a little bit more offline, because they're going to be so consumed and used to this stuff that it might be novel to go play outside.
I hope so, but I doubt it. I
want her to be the kind of baby that plays outside.
I really doubt it. Okay, so we got some parenting advice on Instagram, the Talking Scheetz. If you haven't followed it yet, follow us on Instagram. Of course, download the podcast and subscribe on YouTube and do all those kind of things. But anyway, we've got some great advice. You got overwhelmed with the suggestions. Ask people to tell you how to be a parent. They will do it.
But that's not even what I asked. I asked for the best advice they received.
Okay,
so from others, not something from them specifically. Okay. But there were so many submissions, and I'll end up, after this episode comes out, sharing a lot more of them just on social media, because I think that they were, honestly, some of them made me emotional. Like, I learned a lot from the listeners, which was really, really great.
Can I start with your mom's, just the first one?
Yes.
Are we going to do that?
Of course, yeah.
She said, listen to your children. She said, and it's true. She's the world's greatest listener.
Yes.
Me, not so much.
Yeah.
But she will listen and listen and listen. Like, you know, she'll go to a grocery store, and she'll go through and all of a sudden the person that's ringing in the groceries will tell her their life story. She's just that person.
It's honestly pretty funny to have a whole parenting episode without featuring our mother, who is like just an incredible parent. But you're right. She has a.
In fact, I think she's almost too good of a parent.
Yes, she's still stressing
I think
about
she
it.
literally always sacrificed herself for her family, which is awesome. But again, that's not good either.
Yeah.
You know, you know what I'm saying?
For sure. She's given so much of herself to all of us.
Yeah.
And she has
She wakes up in the morning and she just says, okay.
What does everyone else need from me?
Yeah.
Really quickly. And I think that we've been trying a little bit harder, but I think that we all need to do a better job of like letting her Like her kids are fine. Everyone's fine. Have your moment,
Yeah.
Care.
Yeah.
Go do you.
Yeah.
But she is just such an incredible parent.
Yeah.
And I'm learning so much from her. I'm learning so much from both of you. I will give you that.
Oh,
I'm learning a lot from
that's a
both of you,
stretch,
and I've
but
learned
okay.
a lot from both of you throughout my life.
Yeah.
But she is the best listener. I think the way that she put it was always listen to their stories, even if you don't really care.
Yeah.
And her anecdote was driving us home from school. She always picked us up and drove us home.
Yeah.
And we would tell stories about things that happened in our class and gossip and things that going on with the cliques at recess. And she always knew the characters that we were talking about, kept up with the lore, and she always just like had good advice, and she truly listened. And I think that is a really important thing. So we'll kick it off with advice from Mama Care.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. At Emilio, our friend Adriana, she said, it's only a problem if it's a problem for you in terms of parenting. So comfort feeding, rocking your baby to sleep. There's so many rules these days where people say like, oh, you shouldn't be doing this after 6 months, or you shouldn't be doing this after 3 months. And it's like, is it bad for the baby or is it inconvenient for you?
Right.
You know, so I think that like if it's working for you, our baby Leona is very hungry. She eats overnight. She will always feed at least once overnight, I think, until she's maybe 10 years old.
Yeah,
but
she'll be having shreddies in the middle of the night.
Sometimes I like a snack overnight. So it doesn't bother me, and it's not something that I'm working to get rid of because it's a nice time for her and I at night. And I think that that's a really good advice, is it's only a problem if it's a problem for you as the parent.
Because there's other people that would love to try to tell you it's a problem.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
And maybe it doesn't work for
And
one
sometimes
family.
they mean well by trying to give you advice, but sometimes mind your own business.
Yeah, I do think so. Yeah.
Okay.
B_Randers says, let them be kids.
Let them be little.
That's a good one.
Yeah, all right.
Lauren Fink, friend of the show, at Lauren Fink, says, cry when
Shout out Chandler.
Shout out Chandler, one of our favorite other babies, says, cry when the baby cries.
Take advantage of that moment.
Everyone always says sleep when the baby sleeps,
Cry
which
when
is
the baby
absolutely sleep when the baby sleeps is absolutely ridiculous advice.
Yeah.
Because when the baby sleeps, it's the only time that you have to do anything else in your day. And that is shower, eat, do the dishes. Honestly, just take some time for yourself. I have never once napped when Leona has napped. But cry when the baby cries. Yeah. It's like, well, they're already upset. I may as well just get it out. It's a great advice. Janelle Fark says, in general, comparison is the thief of joy. Don't compare yourself to other kids or parents.
So true.
Yeah. We were just at a family birthday party this past weekend. Yeah. And there were 4 babies born in the same month. So the same age as Leona. They were all 7 months old, including Chandler. Yeah. And they all had such different personalities and they were all doing different things.
And different sizes.
Yes. Different shapes, different sizes, different vibes. Yeah. Like, I think that really showed me, like, you're just going to have a kid and they're going to have their own thing. And some of them were sitting and some of them weren't. And some of them had teeth and some of them weren't. And some of them were army crawling and bullying the other kids. And that might have been mine. But they all were just the same age. Yeah. Doing completely different things. And I think that really teaches you can't compare.
Great advice.
They're all their own people.
Okay.
Janelle also said, sleep train your kids.
Okay.
So that worked for her.
All right, Janelle. We got it.
Yeah. Suze QPD, which is Suzanne Pescott, another friend of the show.
Suzanne, from Ronald McDonald House.
Yes, we love Ronald McDonald House.
Yes, we do.
In stressful moments, think about how you'd like to look back on your reaction or action.
Okay. So, looking back and saying, did I handle that properly?
Yeah, and before you act, think, am I going to look back on this and regret how I acted?
Okay.
I don't think you were a super reactive parent. I feel like you were always pretty chill for the most part.
Yeah. I'm going to say it. I remember when you were just a little person, you were just walking and you had your diaper and you did something wrong. I remember it was in your bedroom. You did something wrong. And my instant reaction was to give you a tap on the butt, like a little swat. Mm-hmm. And then I thought to myself, what am I doing? Why did I just do that? Mm-hmm. And that was the last time that I ever touched my children in any way, in that form, right? But it was kind of like an initial instant reaction. But I never did it ever.
I think that's...
Your brother and I fist fought sometimes because I said, you don't have a brother. We got to fight.
Well, you still do that.
Yeah.
But I think that like physical punishment and things like that is something that has changed a lot generationally.
Right.
That we haven't talked about is like... they're just a little person trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
Maybe we use our words sometimes, but that's definitely something that has changed a lot. Another piece of advice we have from Just Us Gals podcast, which is a new podcast that just launched.
Okay.
With my friend Jessica Kent and her friend Heather.
From the Oilers.
Yeah. Jessica works for the Oilers, and they launched a mom pod. And so they should have all kinds of advice.
For sure.
But they said the louder they get, the quieter you should get. The madder they get, the calmer you should get. So reacting opposite to what your kid and your baby is acting like.
The worst was when your dad got quiet.
Yeah.
That was always the worst.
My dad has never been quiet.
No, so, you never saw that.
And then our last piece of advice is from...
I've got one too, but go ahead.
Our second last piece of advice is from our friend Jordan Parker.
Yeah.
And he said on Facebook that you need to appreciate these times, even if it's a late night hockey practice or a dance recital somewhere across Alberta, wherever you are. It's like... You gotta learn to enjoy these moments and appreciate them, even if they're inconvenient at the time. And I'm not at the place yet where we're running around with Leona doing all of those things, but you and Mom did a lot of that for us.
Never missed a thing. And granted, our schedules kind of worked. I mean, I was working afternoons. I would record sometimes the end of my show, and then just so I could be at your events, and then I'd walk in and everybody would be like, I just heard you on the radio.
You became like a ghost.
What are you doing here? But Jordan, great dad, and that's great advice. You don't want to have regrets because the days are long, but the years are short.
And that's so true.
Yeah.
Yeah, the nights are long.
The nights are long too, especially when you cry when your child cries. Okay, one last thing. This is going to sound like ooh, must be nice. But a number of years ago when somebody named Taylor Swift was in town, her mom was here with her, Andrea, right?
Andrea Swift.
And she took us backstage, Taylor did, and then her mom gave us a backstage tour of the stage and everything like that. And everybody was walking up front with Taylor, because she was, of course, they're walking with Taylor, and I kind of walked with Mom in the back. And I said, Andrea, you have a son, right? And she said, yeah. And her son's name is? Austin.
Yeah.
And I said, how is he doing? Is he doing okay? And she paused and she stopped and she says, nobody ever asks us about him. She says, he's doing great, Chris. Thank you for asking. And she said, and let's put it this way. I'll never forget when she said this. She says, you're only as happy as your unhappiest child. And I thought that was a great point.
You've said that. You've sat with that for years.
I've used that so many times. Yeah, no, but it's so true. Incredible. You're only as happy as your unhappiest child. The point is, you could have Taylor Swift as one child, and if your son, it wasn't the case, but if your son or daughter, was not doing well and things like that, it doesn't matter how well one's doing. It's just you just want them all to do well, right? And you just want them all to be happy, and that was it.
And Andrea Swift has to be one of the greatest parents of all time. So,
talk about a super mom.
Yeah, that's amazing.
All right.
I mean, there's nowhere to go from here.
No.
Once you get advice from Taylor Swift's mom, where do you go?
You go here.
Yeah.
And being a wonderful grandpa that I am, I'm going to play a song for my granddaughter here by request.
Yes, she's, when I'm editing this podcast, she'll be bouncing.
She loves it. All right, Dan, do it for Leona.
Even when we got nothing to talk about, there's nowhere I'd rather be, 'cause there's something about you and me just sitting around talking sheets.